Let's go to the UK now, where actor Hugh Grant has been accused of snobbery and bad manners for refusing to shake the hand of Chancellor of the Exchequer Sajid Javid. The Chancellor has said Hugh Grant is part of an elite and looks down on working class people. He's also an insufferable lefty hypocrite and Remainer, Gideon. But my goodness, what terrible manners. You've got the Chancellor going up to you, extending his hand to shake your hand, and you just stand there and leave him hanging because his politics don't align with yours?
So the story behind this is that Hugh Grant claims that he didn't shake his hand because Sajid Javid was dismissive and rude to people who approached him for a campaign about privacy laws, in effect. Now, Hugh Grant,
previous role, yeah.
Now, firstly, to not shake somebody's hand is pretty rude and dismissive as well, but Hugh Grant has form on being rude and dismissive because remember this tweet that which I brought in, that he emitted after Boris Johnson was sworn in as Prime Minister, saying, and I'm very mindful of the fact that we're in the middle of the afternoon, "You will not F with my children's future. You will not destroy the freedoms my grandfather fought 2 world wars to defend. F off, you over-promoted rubber bath toy. Britain is revolted by you and you sick little gang of masturbatory prefects." Now, that's not exactly the height of civilised discourse.
No, it isn't, and the polls would suggest that Britain doesn't share Hugh Grant's opinion. That's why I love when they can't they can't speak on their own behalf. They've got to speak for all of Britain.
Yeah.
And also pretty funny to say, you know, his grandfather fought world wars, so Britain could remain in the EU and be answerable
under the thumb of the Germans.
Yeah. Now, Daisy, is the left becoming incapable of basic civility? You can disagree passionately, robustly, and still shake hands with someone, can't you?
Well, I would have thought as a mature human being that would be sort of the default, Rita, but apparently with the Hugh Grant faction of leftism, that isn't quite the case anymore. And the reason for this sort of lack of civility and just this unashamed dogpiling that leftists tend to do on conservatives, calling them every name under the sun, not denouncing violence against them, for instance, in the form of Antifa, is because leftists view conservatives in a fundamentally different way than conservatives view leftists. And the way I usually put it is that the right think the left are naive, but the left think the right are evil. And those are two very, very different things. And if you think that a person is evil, if you think that their views are so different from yours that they are immoral and they are destructive and they are fascist or whatever, then you can justify doing or saying anything to them or about them, dissing them publicly, calling them names, etc., because ultimately you, on your moral high ground as a leftist, are a good person, and that conservative is evil and deserves to be quashed and silenced and ridiculed and defamed. And that seems to be the school of thought of Hugh Grant. So it's perfectly fine for him to tweet out something that really was quite rude, shall we say. I remember that tweet, Gideon. Thank you for bringing it up. It's fine for him to do that about Boris Johnson, but you know, any kind of conservative does anything, comes up and shakes their hand.
It's evident in that clip we showed earlier of that woman screaming at that man's face. You know, they feel entitled to behave so appallingly because they I don't know, they're just drunk on their own perceived moral superiority. They think that despite behaving like that, that they are moral superiors.